All right, ready?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis Lee, account executive with CoStar and LoopNet. So I've been here at CoStar for about a year now. So it's been really cool working with Peter Camp. So I'm based out of the Arcadia office, and this is my counterpart, David Ballou.
Yeah, I've been covering the Alhambra office. We were here a little while ago. What was that, like 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Something like that, talking about LoopNet. Today we're going to be covering CoStar. So this is kind of a training for our current subscribers. It's also kind of a demonstration of some of the things you can do inside of CoStar for any of you that are not CoStar subscribers right now. If you have any interest in getting into commercial real estate, this would be kind of, this is what we would show you in the meeting, kind of some of the basic functions that you would use CoStar with to conduct real estate business. So if anybody has any questions, by all means, feel free to shout those out. If you're in the Zoom call, just put them in the chat and we'll probably address them either midway or towards the end. And for any of the people here, obviously, just let us know if you have a question. So let's get started. We're already sharing our screen here. There we go. Yeah. All right, so this is the CoStar homepage. This is our kind of news clearing. We have about 50 full-time journalists embedded in major metro markets. In the middle here, these are going to be national, international stories, kind of like the big news items of the day. On the left side here, these will be market specific, so in this case, Southern California. If we scroll further down on the page, we can filter those news items into some of these different categories here. Especially broken down by asset type here. So like, let's say somebody's really focused on multifamily property, for instance. You can come in here and keep track of just stories related to multifamily properties. You can also filter by the market that you're focused on. So like Los Angeles or Orange County or in the Inland Empire, whatever the case may be. The types of news stories we're covering here will be highlighting major transactions, market trends, kind of like professional changes, like, prominent brokers changing companies, these kinds of things. There'll be interviews, kind of a, wide range of different types of stories that you'd see here. I think this is kind of an underutilized feature inside of CoStar, but this is another, big thing that we have going on here. It's just, staying on top of what's going on in the market.
And is this free of use?
So you do have to be a CoStar subscriber to access this information, yes.
But in the link is just CoStar.com?
Yes. Yeah, www.costar.com.
Yeah.
And also blanket statement, if any of you are not a current subscriber and you have any questions or are interested, please feel free to reach out to me or Dennis. We'd love to talk to you about some of the things you can do with CoStar. So I'm actually going to start today in our markets tab. So CoStar employs close to 100 full-time economists and market analysts. They provide us with market and sub-market reports broken down by asset type and updated quarterly. So let this load a little bit. All these blue dots on the page here, these represent in this case, the office markets in the United States, Canada, and the UK. I'm going to flip this to the sub-markets though. And for my purposes today, I'm going to be mostly talking about multifamily, but the same steps that I'm running through here can be applied to any type of property that you'd be interested in. Let's load. Let's zoom in on Southern California. So you can see on the map sort of what these different territories look like, the different submarkets look like in terms of geography on the map. Important to note that if you change the type of property, these boundaries will adjust a little bit. So these boundaries are determined by property inventory, sales transaction volume. We have a lot of different data points to suggest to us that properties in this area belong together for retail. It might look slightly different for multifamily versus industrial, so on and so forth. So looking at multifamily, on the right side here, the default sorting is just the total asset value of this particular of these submarkets. So in this case, Irvine down in Orange County has the total largest asset value of all the multifamily property in that submarket. Now, if we go to my list view here, we can sort by any of these particular metrics here. So this page, to me, there's kind of two main applications for this. The first is that you're working with a buyer. They come to you and they say, all right, I have, let's say $5 million we want to spend on multifamily property in Southern California. where should I spend my money? Where is the best return, for my dollar? In that case, we'd probably want to sort by cap rate. Where is the best cash flow return for our investment? In this case, outlining Riverside County and outlining San Bernardino County are the top two submarkets in terms of the cash flow from those properties. Now, important to qualify, I always want to take a look at the inventory units here. So outlining Riverside County, yes, they're getting an average, I think 6.6 cap, it said. That's a very strong cash flow return, much higher than what you see across most of Southern California. But there's only a little over 1,000 apartment units in that entire submarket. So maybe, there's a couple properties that are really overperforming. They're skewing those numbers. There's not a lot of inventory there is kind of the point. So maybe that's not actually the most advantageous area for our clients. Important to kind of qualify, these numbers. We don't want to just look strictly at one and say, okay, yes, that's the answer. So in that case, kind of using a few of these different numbers, outlining San Bernardino County here is actually, to me, the most interesting multifamily investment submarket in Southern California. Victorville, not exactly an exciting, destination location in most people's minds, but some very interesting multifamily investment opportunities there. Average sale price per unit, about 160 a door. That's less than half of what you would see here in San Gabriel Valley, for instance. And close to, I believe that was what, 13,000 inventory units? Yeah, 12,779. So some opportunity there. Definitely enough inventory that, we're confident that you could go in and, pick up a listing or find an off market or, go through any of the current listing inventory with your buyer. The other application of this page is for ourselves as a broker. We want to decide where do we want to prospect for business. In that case, I'm again going to look at this inventory units. We'll sort there. Where is the most opportunity for us to pick up a listing? We want to give ourselves multiple bites at the apple here. So in that case, San Gabriel Valley takes the top spot with over 64,000 inventory units, followed pretty closely by Long Beach, K-Town, and Southeast LA. So let's go into the San Gabriel Valley multifamily submarket report now. So along the top of the page here, we're going to have numbers to describe this particular submarket. If we hover over any of these numbers, it'll show us the change compared to the prior year. Why is this cut off like that? Moving further into the report here, we're going to get some summary from the market analyst talking about what has happened with multifamily property over the past quarter. In this case, this is the Q2 2022 submarket report. These next tables here will compare some of these metrics for this particular submarket compared to the larger market. So in this case, San Gabriel Valley compared to Los Angeles at large. Again, if we hover over any of these numbers, it'll show us the change compared to the prior year.
So some important details that David scrolled over is multifamily. You want to know what the price is or how much you can rent out a studio, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. All that data is just going to be like right over there.
You can also jump to any of these particular subsections of the report. So like rent that Dennis was just touching on. Again, we'll get some commentary here from the analyst of what has happened in terms of change in rental rate over the past quarter. And then starting to get into some of these graphs. This first one, this is just a daily asking rent per square foot. So blended through all types of multifamily property, all unit mixes, et cetera. As of yesterday, the 9th of August, we were at $2.31 a foot for rental rates for multifamily property in San Gabriel Valley. This one right here, market rent per unit by bedroom. So this is the average rental rate for a studio up to a 3-bedroom apartment in San Gabriel Valley. Now this vertical line right here, that represents today. So everything to the right of that line is a forecast scenario. So in this case, projecting out for 5 years. So looking out to Q3 2027.
And one of the people that I work very closely with is Ryan Patap. He graduated Yale, super smart guy. He basically analyzes the data and tries to forecast what's going to be happening in the future.
So right now it seems like the price per square footage for residential is catching up with the office building, and even surpass the office building.
Well, so this is just for multifamily right now.
Yeah, multifamily.
Yeah.
Residential, right?
No, this would be across apartment buildings. So yeah, so for this is just for multifamily property, which for CoStar means 5 units and up. Now there will be some duplex, triplex, fourplex data that gets blended in here. If somebody lists those properties of those size on CoStar, then we'll enter that data in, and then the sales comp information will end up in this data set. But we're not actively tracking the units that are 5 and under. Those are still considered residential properties for lending purposes. But this same kind of information that we're looking at here, this was the multifamily submarket report. The same level of detail of information for this submarket or any of the submarkets is available for office property, retail property, industrial, all different asset types of commercial property.
Yeah, so David,
What's the rent for the office building then?
yeah, so what we would do if we were going to do it, we would just basically do the same thing San Gabriel Valley. We would pull up the office submarket report,
Yeah.
and then we'll get the number, it'll tell us, and then that way you can compare the two together.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what is the market for the office?
Yeah, let's look it up.
Yeah, let's take a
Yeah,
look.
so it's gonna be super easy. We can look it up.
Okay.
So we're going to come back here, and I'm just going to flip multifamily to office.
Okay.
And one of the huge advantages of CoStar too is,
$3.25? That's kind of high.
Well, we want to check, San Gabriel Valley. So let's do Western San Gabriel Valley. That's where we are right now.
and going back to multifamily, one of the cool things about CoStar is we own apartments.com. So all that data from apartments.com is funneled into CoStar. So that's how we're able to get very accurate information too.
So here we have the same, kind of metric, like the market rent per square foot, broken down into different classes of buildings. So the 3-star and under versus 4 and 5-star, all of Western San Gabriel Valley, and then compared to Los Angeles. And same situation, everything to the right of this line here is a forecast.
So yeah, Peter, you're right. It was higher.
So it's higher than the-
Yeah. Yeah. So this is another way to help your clients out, right? So Peter brought up a good question, because sometimes a client might not know whether to invest in like multifamily or to invest in office or industrial. So you can use that data to help bring up a solution for that client. So there's a lot of different data you can look at.
Or even on the forecast.
Correct.
Yeah.
You got it.
The forecasts are also especially important for anybody doing any kind of like construction or development. Most construction pipeline in Los Angeles at large is a several month, if not several year process, sort of depending on the size of the project. Pre-COVID, I think a purely by right entitlement process was 9 months, best case scenario. I can only imagine that timeline is longer now post-COVID. It's not uncommon for, like for instance, like a large office building or an apartment building with like subterranean parking, that kind of thing, for that project to be in approvals with the city for 2 to 3 years, potentially. This is where these forecast scenarios start to become really important, because the rent today, that's great and all, but the building's not going to be ready to be sold or leased for 2-3 years potentially. We need to be keeping an eye on where things are headed down the road to justify the construction cost. Is this even worth the time, effort, and money it's going to take to get the approvals and then actually build the building?
What is your criteria, I'm sorry, for the 3 to the 4, 5 star? What's the difference between those two?
So these are CoStar internal definitions. I don't have specific definitions of like what constitutes 3 versus 4, those kinds of things. I know, for example, 5-star is like new construction, architecturally significant, LEED certified, these kinds of things. In Southern California, outside of new construction, the vast majority of commercial property is going to be 2 and 3-star. It's kind of akin to like Class A, Class B building, but we have slightly different definitions for those.
Do we know the criteria that's used for the forecasting for the next 5 years? Is it based off of the past 5 years or years prior, or do they take into consideration like our looming economy that's current right now, which won't reflect the past 5 years of growth?
The answer is both. Actually, that we're looking at the office submarket here. We actually got notification a couple weeks ago that they have adjusted their forecast scenarios for most of the office asset types. This whole work from home hybrid situation, that is still this sort of like moving target where nobody is exactly sure, where office vacancy is going to land. Probably higher than where it was, 2 years ago, but probably also lower than where it was pre-shutdown.
Right.
And, even beyond just like the decision of are we coming back into the office or not, if we have employees that are working in hybrid roles, does that mean that we need less, square footage for the office space? All of that is still kind of shifting and changing, day to day. It's very difficult to say exactly where that's going to land. But yes, we are accounting for, economic factors beyond just, what are the prior growth line looking like.
Good questions.
Yeah. All right, so that's kind of what we got going on in the submarket market reports. Last section I wanted to touch on here was players. So this was tracking top buyers, top sellers, and top brokers of these particular asset types in this submarket over the past 5 years. If you've got a listing, you're trying to sell a property, any of these top buyers are definitely people that I want to be talking to. Positive Investments, they've spent about $40 million on office property in this particular submarket over the last 5 years. If you've got an office listing, that is absolutely somebody that you should be talking to.
And Srinivas, like I had lunch with him, awesome guy, super down to earth. I like that guy a lot.
Same here, some of these top sellers, maybe these are people that you should be, talking to see about a listing. If they're unloading inventory, that's good to know. That's, opportunity for a buyer that you're working with. Maybe we can find something off market, before they have, started passing it around to all the brokers. If you've got a listing yourself, maybe this is somebody to, approach as well.
This CoStar doesn't have the contacts for those companies.
We do.
Oh, you do?
Yes. So you wouldn't find them in the report here, but I'll show you in just a second how you would pull up their information. And then, of course, the top brokers as well. You guys gonna get some more office listings. All right, so let's jump over to my all properties tab now.
And that's why David and I are here. We're gonna help you get to that point.
It's a page to you. Is that what's the one?
Oh, I have it. We didn't say. When you first open up the CoStar page, how do you get to the submarket and what you were showing them?
Good question. So basically there's in the middle module that he's hovering, there's a markets button right there. So when you click on the markets button, basically you would just put in the city or the submarket that you want, and then the asset type, whether it be like retail, office, industrial. So yeah, we can do a separate training or go over it, like again, if we need to. But yeah, that's where you would go. Just go to markets.
All right, so now we're in the all properties tab. All of these pins on the map here represent properties in our database. So the dark blue ones, the ones that are turning orange because I'm hovering over them right here, those are active listings, either for sale or for lease. The gray pins, so all the other pins on the map here, are just properties that are in our database. They're either a sale comp, a lease comp, or just a property that is in our database that we have information on. It may have never transacted ever, it may have never been listed for sale. Our goal is to track every commercial property in the United States and Canada. And so if there are 5 commercial properties on a given street block, we want information on all 5.
So that would be a good way to find out who owns it. So like you wanna call and find out you wanna sell, just click on that.
Yeah, like click on just directly on one property and then go to the contacts tab. Exactly. I'm getting there. We're moving towards some prospecting ideas.
Right there, then know who owns it and the transactions attached to that property.
So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at just the active listings that we have on our platform. Let's say we're working with a buyer, they're interested in purchasing, someone pick a type of commercial property, multifamily, industrial.
Like commercial, retail.
Can we pick like retail, office, industrial, like one of just like the big buckets?
Retail.
Retail, okay. So we'll choose retail.
Like shopping center.
Okay.
So would that be under industry, shopping center?
Retail.
Now we'll try to keep it simple for now so that everyone could understand it. And then if we need to go deeper, we could do like individual training too.
Yeah. So because we've chosen retail, we are given the option to filter by shopping center type. So let's do strip center, for instance.
That's your most common, right? In San Diego?
There are a number of those. I like strip centers because as a broker, they give us multiple opportunities to earn a commission. If we're going to approach the owner about listing their property for sale, cool, great, we got a transaction there. The new owner that comes in, you can approach yourself to, offer assistance for any leasing, vacancies they may have. That's potentially multiple, bites at the apple. So yeah, strip centers are always kind of, interesting for a broker.
And then you have the flip side to the tenants, right? And
Correct.
then getting them into another location or even buying.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Let's give ourselves as many, chances to make some money as we can. So the other thing we'd want to do is put some sort of geographic filter on the map here. So that, the default location, we're in my CoStar, so this is going to center around my office out here in Ontario. We have a number of different tools here to apply a geographic filter. We could use our polygon tool and just draw a shape on the map. So like, for instance, I only want to focus on this property immediately around the Ontario airport. Let's load. All right, so we've got 20 strip centers right here in this area. We could also do a radius search. So let's look at every property within, say, a 5-mile radius of a given address. So what's the address here again?
1611 South Garfield.
Can we do it by zip code?
You can.
You can also do it by zip code. And then I had a lot of realtors ask me, because like within CoStar, they want to do East San Gabriel Valley, West San Gabriel Valley, and Pasadena. So there's a way to combine that into one survey or one search too. So if you ever need that, just reach out to David and I can show you how to do that later on.
Yeah, so when we click location here, we have all of these different options on the right side here. We can filter by CoStar's submarkets and markets. That was what Dennis was just touching on. Let's get the East San Gabriel Valley, West San Gabriel Valley, and Pasadena, include all 3 of those. We could look for just LA County. We could look for specific states. We could filter by specific zip codes, specific cities, specific university footprints. I live in Claremont. That would be a very highly used one. You've got 7 universities right there. Knowing those specific boundaries could be very useful. In this case, let's do the submarkets. Let's change this to Los Angeles. It's not scrolling.
I wonder if it's like full screen or it's so kind of weird.
Yeah, the like aspect ratio
There
on
we
this
go.
is very
Yeah, there you
strange.
go.
That's better.
Much better. Good job.
There we go. Okay. So now let's get Pasadena.
Oh, I see. So you're creating your own market. that you
Yeah.
research. Got it.
So
All
what he
right.
did was he created a submarket, kind of like what I said. So a lot of the brokers in this area are realtors. They want East San Gabriel, West San Gabriel, and also Pasadena. So David just kind of like combined it to one. So he basically clicked on locations and then submarkets in San Gabriel and then added Pasadena.
Because that's a pretty common thing, is Pasadena will get separated out from the rest of San Gabriel Valley. There's enough inventory there that it's usually just considered as kind of its own thing, as opposed to the rest of San Gabriel Valley.
Now, is this searching for leases or for purchase or for sale?
So right now, this is just all properties. We haven't put any filter on right now. So 29,300 commercial properties in this bound right here. Now let's look at retail properties. And we'll filter by strip centers again.
And then can we show before we do that, how many properties that are on CoStar versus how many properties are on LoopNet? So generally, there should be about twice as many properties that are on CoStar versus on LoopNet. And the reason why is because not every single broker is going to pay a monthly subscription or quarterly subscription to put it onto LoopNet, whereas it is free for the brokers and realtors to list it onto CoStar.
There may also be strategic reasons to not put a property on LoopNet. The classic case is exactly what we're looking at here, like a retail strip center. The landlord wants to sell the property. They don't necessarily want to alarm all the tenants that there's a new landlord coming in. That one probably wouldn't go on LoopNet because any of the tenants could then potentially find that listing.
But CoStar owns LoopNet, right?
Correct.
Yeah, CoStar owns LoopNet, correct.
So putting it onto CoStar doesn't automatically
No, it does not automatically go onto
The other way it
LoopNet.
does.
And you're right, 100% right, Ruben.
Yeah.
So when you put it onto LoopNet, it automatically goes into CoStar.
So CoStar, you have to let it know to transfer it to Google.
Correct. You have to have a silver listing or a gold, platinum, or diamond listing.
You have to call me or Dennis and talk to us about some LoopNet. That's what you have to do.
Right.
What about if we put something in commercial MLS? They will show on.
No, it's not gonna feed to CoStar or LoopNet.
There is no automatic feed there. Now, if our research department finds out that you have that listing, we are going to reach out to you and ask if you would like to have it entered into CoStar. Unless you specifically tell us, no, we do not want the listing in CoStar, we're going to input there and then, stay in touch with you for updates to that listing. But that is free. You do not have to be a subscriber to CoStar. We would love to have your listing.
You're just providing more service to your members, right?
Correct.
Well, and for the
That's one of
listing
reasons-
as
that's one of the
well.
reasons, correct.
Now, the sort of catch there is, a listing in CoStar, the only people who can see those listing are CoStar subscribers.
Right.
So, it's free to search, but you got to pay, or free to list, but you have to pay to search inside of CoStar. LoopNet, it's pay to list, but it's free to search. Anybody can come to LoopNet to look for
What's
listings.
the benefit or the difference of having just CoStar and LoopNet?
So,
It's owned by corporate, so when you put something CoStar, it doesn't go to LoopNet?
correct.
So I could answer this question. So basically, for example, right, so Peter came to me, we worked together on one of his listings, right, for his team. And basically, he had a dental office, and basically the owner wanted a high amount for that dental office. And what we did was we basically looked at the sales comparable in CoStar, and we saw the transactions that happened recently around that area. So with CoStar, you're able to look up a lot of data similar to that. So you could get sales comps and lease comps. So CoStar, you can look up that data. So then that way, Peter and his team doesn't have to waste time because he knows that, hey, the owner wants this much, it's going to actually sell for this much, right? So you can do that work so you don't waste time. Whereas that's just one example. Whereas LoopNet is totally different. That's more of a marketing arm where you have a listing and you want our 11 million tenants and investors to see that property. So then that way you can sell it or lease it and get more exposure for it. So hopefully you can sell it for more or lease it for more for your owner.
They're complementary products. To me, CoStar is something that is a database of information that you are going to use to generate listings. Then once you've got the listing, LoopNet is where you would advertise that listing. They don't really like this when we say this internally at CoStar, but it's kind of like MLS and Zillow. Like CoStar is MLS. This is like, sales comps. It's a listing inventory that is not accessible to the public, these kinds of things. Zillow is the website that anyone and their mother can just go to and look at properties for sale or for lease.
So if I have a listing in CoStar, it doesn't automatically go to LoopNet where other people in the public can see it?
Correct.
Correct.
Now, the other way around is true. If you have the listing on LoopNet, it will automatically be entered in CoStar, but not the other way around. You have to, because all LoopNet advertising are paid ads now. So if you have a listing that you want to put on LoopNet, definitely give us a call. We can talk to you about what your options are. Those are all paid ads.
So what's better, to list it in LoopNet or CoStar?
Depends. If you are trying to get that listing the maximum possible exposure, you want the most people to see that, then definitely LoopNet.
And can you get comps and all that in LoopNet? too?
No, comps and everything would be inside of CoStar.
Oh, okay. So you actually need both.
Yeah.
If you're doing commercial real estate, it's definitely better to have both because I believe like 99% of the top commercial real estate agents have CoStar. So in order for you to compete with them, you need that data and analytics. And as a realtor, you have to be able to help your owner to the best of your ability. And you need that data and the correct data in order to do so.
And there is, this sort of like, I would say circular relationship between the two. So you used CoStar, you prospected for some new clients, you've got a listing, we're advertising the listing on LoopNet now. Just like with a sign, for sale sign in front of the property, people are going to be calling to you about your listing. Maybe that particular one doesn't work for them, but that's now a new lead for you. They're telling you exactly what their criteria are for their new space. We can now take them, go back to CoStar and find more properties for them. And so, kind of a circular thing, like just to say it's just an advertising platform, I think does undersell, the business generation aspect of just having a listing. I think everybody in real estate understands that sort of just intrinsic value of having a listing, something to offer, somebody on the phone call. You instantly have established a much higher level of credibility with any potential owner or tenant just because you've already picked up a listing. So, I mean, there is a business development component to LoopNet advertising as well.
Dennis,
Yes.
you mentioned that it's good to have both CoStar as well as LoopNet.
Correct.
So we are commercial agent.
Yes.
So why don't you offer a special program for the CoStar subscriber? In case they want to have a LoopNet, you have a substantial discount for them.
Yeah, so the good thing about Coldwell Banker is called the economy of scale, because there's a lot of brokers and real estate agents that have CoStar. So the more people in this office that has CoStar, then the rate for each person is going to decrease, right?
Oh, it does.
And then another benefit too is if you have CoStar, when you put up a LoopNet listing, it's going to be 20% off. So that's a good package that Coldwell Banker has.
So based on the current member / users that CBGR has for CoStar is what the monthly fee is, right? Well, it is what the membership cost is.
Yeah, so
Yes.
Peter can talk more about the membership cost to each individual person, how much it's going to be. I can let you know that the membership cost for this building and also for the Arcadia building, for the realtors, it's a lot less expensive. It's a better return on investment than if it was just like a single broker themselves.
Like one person walks up to us and says, "Hi, I want to buy CoStar," they have a price. Because you guys have a contract that has multiple users, kind of like you go to Costco, you get like the big thing of paper towels, and the per cost of a single roll is less. Same thing with CoStar. Because there's already an existing contract with multiple users here, you guys do get a discounted rate for access to the CoStar database. And then as a CoStar subscriber, you get a 20% discount on silver ads on LoopNet.
I guess my question was like, if currently there's 10 members paying, right, at a certain rate, if we were to commit to 50, would that much?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's
Yes.
definitely gonna drop the price, correct.
So based on the ratio of what we have currently and what a number that we give you, like, let's say 50 members, you'd be able to tell us what the rate would be?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, of course.
And-
That's why I can offer a lower price for agents and for Bank of George Realty compared to other.
Oh yeah, a lot less
a lot
expensive,
less.
correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we got a little off track there, but these are good. This is good. This is good. This is good conversation. So we did want to highlight just sort of the difference in the number of listings that are on LoopNet versus the ones that are just inside of CoStar. So we have 192 retail properties that are currently for sale in Pasadena and the San Gabriel Valley. Let's look at the ones that are just inside of CoStar. So 63. So about a third of the total inventory of active listings is just visible inside of CoStar. So if you're working with a buyer, if you are just looking on LoopNet, you are missing out on some of those opportunities.
I have a question. Why do you click not visible LoopNet? Do you have to do that when you look for properties, or what's the reason why you do?
Well, so this is just inside of CoStar. I'm establishing the difference between, like, if you're looking for listings on LoopNet versus having access to CoStar. Like we were just talking about, not every listing goes into LoopNet. Some of them are just inside of CoStar.
So these would not be viewable by the public.
Correct.
Someone that-
So again, like it's similar to like the Zillow MLS, thing. You're in residential, somebody says, "Oh, I saw this house on Zillow. I want to go see it." Great, cool. You with MLS access have access to see properties that they cannot see. So that's value add to your clients. You are able to offer them information that they are not able to get themselves. Okay. So with this list of properties here, these retail strip centers for sale, next thing I'd want to do with this is save my search. Let's call this retail for sale Pasadena SGV, not on LoopNet. If I enable an alert for this search, you can get an email and a notification anytime a new listing has been entered into our database that meets our search criteria. You've got your client who's expressed interest in retail strip centers in this area. We've shown them these listings. We want to stay on top of that client. As a new listing becomes available, we want to immediately be notified of that so we can let them know, hey, here's a new opportunity. Do you like this building?
At that same time, does it alert you when a listing has been closed and no longer available?
Does that include?
So if we went into the sales comps, basically, if a transaction happens, then if you set up alert in sales comps, then you would see that something got sold.
And it will turn from solid to gray.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, next I'm going to click on reports here. There are over 200 different reports inside of CoStar. If you are a current CoStar subscriber, I would strongly encourage you to spend a little time in here going through these, seeing what's included or not included in each report, kind of, you know, which reports make sense and work in different circumstances. Let this load here. Now, for this scenario that we're talking about right now, let's pretend that we are going to go look at some properties. We're going to put our client in our car and we're actually go drive around and look at some addresses.
So the advantage of these reports, it's super simple to do. It just takes generally a few clicks of the button, and the client would think that sometimes you spend a lot of time generating these reports. It's also going to have your name on the reports, the company name on the reports, and what you can do is you can download it, download the PDF, and then you can send it to your client.
Email it.
Oh, yeah, you can definitely email it, correct. And sometimes what happens is just like Zoom and also CoStar kind of like are fighting for the bandwidth. So sometimes it just takes a little bit longer when we both have both these up. But generally, if we just have CoStar up, it's a lot faster.
That we're recording is also like eating up a lot of bandwidth. CoStar is a big, beefy website. There's a lot of information on. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right, so this scenario, we're going to go drive around and look at some properties with our client. There's 3 reports here in particular that I like. First one here, property map overview. This one's pretty basic. It's a map showing us where all these listings are located. Further down here, one-line property information report. This one's going to include like basically quick hit information about each one of these listings. Property address, sale price, square footage, price per square foot, these kinds of things. And those fields will be slightly different depending on the type of property we're looking at. Like if it was multifamily, for instance, you know, it would be the number of units, not necessarily the square footage of the building. Property summary report. This one's a very detailed report about each individual listings, like 1 to 4 pages of information, including a set of sales comps. So again, I like to think of this as a packet that we're going to hand our client. They get in your car, first page, here's a map, all the places we're going today. Second page, quick hit information about each one of those listings. And then as you arrive at each one of those properties, turn to that property summary report. There's a lot of information about that particular building that we're standing in front of right now.
So you're talking about potentially 50 pages.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it sort of depends. You know, I don't know too many brokers that are in the practice of, you know, putting 63 properties on a drive day. You know, maybe let's get that down to like 5, you know, whatever you decide is, you know, appropriate.
And one thing too is like you can use that filters tab. So for example, if your client is just looking for retail space that's 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, you can put those filters in to help like minimize the amount of commercial properties that you're looking at. So there's a lot of things that you can do within CoStar to kind of like narrow your
Like a
search.
max sales.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
filter by
Or,
sale
yeah,
price,
sale price,
you know, square
correct.
footage being occupied, secondary use. Like, you know, there's I think 500 different filter fields to apply here. I'm just scrolling down, looking at what some of these are.
Well,
You can even
max
do
price
like
would be
year
good,
builds
right?
and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Max price, year
Some-
builds.
Some of these will probably way outside the price range, so.
Sure.
Limited.
Yeah,
Correct.
single versus multiple tenancy, class of building, you know, leased percentage leased. You know, do you want to be in a strip center that has a bunch of vacancy? Or are you looking to be like the last tenant, you know, in an otherwise completely occupied space? You know, what amenities are included in the space? You know, we can be as general or as specific as we like here.
Excuse me, on the
Yes.
first report, what was the first choice? Because I know that you picked 3, right? What was the first one?
A property map overview.
Oh, okay, that's the one I was missing.
Okay. All right, so our client has expressed interest in buying one of these properties that we have looked at today. Probably want to pull some sales comps now.
Okay, cool.
So you would pick the one that they're interested in most, right?
Yeah, we would
Correct.
pick a property. I'm keeping this fairly general right now,
How often are sales comps updated?
all the time. All the time. The starting point of most of our sale comp information is we get a direct feed from the county recorder's office. So a new deed has been recorded, that is like entered into our system. That is the starting point. At that point, our research department will start reaching out to anybody that we have associated with that transaction, either the buyer, the seller, or the broker on either side. As I'm about to show you, when you pull up a sales comp entry, you can always see where we got our information and how recently it was updated.
If there was a sale and the property didn't have any contact information on CoStar, would that kind of trigger a step to kind of proceed and kind of dig into like ownership details?
Correct. All right.
So what David's doing right now is he's going into the sales comp module. He's also entering East San Gabriel, West San Gabriel, and Pasadena to the sales comp. So he's looking up all the sales comp in the area at the moment, and then he's clicking retail.
All right, so we do retail. We want to filter by strip center again. So shopping center type.
So basically the same criteria that you search is.
Exactly.
The same criteria for the comps.
Exactly.
Correct.
This is going to default to the last 2 years. We could put in a specific date range or just use any of these default buckets here. Let's take a look at the last 6 months, for instance. Let's see what we got. It's 15. So I'm going to click on analytics now.
How about the radius? How far do you go when you first pick the, let's say, the first 6 months?
That's really up to you. I mean, with any sales comping exercise, you want the comps to be actual comparables to the building that you're interested in. Sometimes there's lots of robust data and you can be, very specific, like let's look at properties just in like a 1 mile radius. Sometimes there hasn't been any transactions. And so we have to start, expanding that circle out a little bit. So I think there are wildly different ideas about what is best practice for sales comping. When I was a broker, for me personally, I wanted, minimum 5 data points. And I was doing like land development comping, which is like very complicated compared to like, like apartment buildings or like retail strip centers where it's, you can kind of find apples to apples comparisons. So for me, I had to cast a very wide net and also take into account, potential construction costs and all these other kind of things. So kind of a mealy-mouthed answer there, but it very much depends on the property that you're trying to comp and then what information is available about other transactions. Have there been other transactions? In some cases there aren't, and so then we're not even looking at a sales comp exercise. Then you're looking at like an income valuation approach.
So that's what nice that time too, like in 6 months you could go. If there's nothing in 6 months, you don't have to go to a year.
Yeah,
or 2 years.
exactly.
Correct.
And same thing with geography, like you could start very specific in an area or then, expand out if there's not enough data points, either one.
And also do the same for like building size or year built.
Yeah. So, okay, so for these 15 retail strip centers in Pasadena and the San Gabriel Valley that have traded hands over the last 6 months, got an average cap rate of 4%, sale price per foot, $225 a foot, sale versus asking price in months to sale. So on average, these 15 properties have sold a little less than 1% over asking. They've been on the market for about 7 months. I always look at these two numbers as sort of like client expectation management. For the seller, they want to know, if we list the property at this price, our offer is going to come in over asking. Are we going to be sitting on the market for a really long time? Should we price a property high to try to get the highest price? Should we price it lower to incite offers? That's what these two numbers are kind of getting at, is sort of gauging these market conditions to guide how you should price property. Now the flip side of that is working with a buyer. Looking at these two numbers, they're selling for about 1% over asking, but they're staying on the market for a long time. Maybe there is an opportunity for us to come in under asking and get ourselves a really nice deal if the owner is really motivated to get a sale done. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Now, if I go back to my list here, so we got 15 properties. Maybe these are all comps for the property in question, maybe they're not. What we'd want to do now is go through each one of these and decide, does it actually work as a comp for the property that we're looking at? This load. There we go. All right, so just looking at these, we got a pretty wide range of square footage. For instance, like this 548 square foot property, 750 square feet, and then we've got a 30,000 and a 25,000. I'm doing this kind of, shotgun approach right now. Normally what I would want to do is go through each one of these properties individually. But for our purposes today, I'm just going to get rid of these like obvious outliers in terms of size.
And some of the brokers some of the successful brokers that I work with too, is sometimes they'll also use the sales comp data because they have a particular listing and they're looking for a buyer again, right? So if someone bought something previously, they might buy something similar to their asset. So that's another thing that some of the brokers do too with the sales comp. So kind of like a little secret.
So yeah, how you would do that is you click on this buyers tab right here, and this will show us who bought property like this recently. This was actually one of the very first things I did as a broker. My senior broker had a piece of land outside of Echo Park that he was looking to sell. And it was January 2017. I walk into the office, he hands me the marketing packet and says, David, I'm going on vacation, go sell this thing. So I came into CoStar and pulled a list of people that had bought similarly sized and zoned land over the past 2 years, had a list of, I don't know, 1,000 people or whatever it was, and just went down the line. Hey, you bought something like this before, are you in the market for another one? Kind of thing. Now, for that approach, I would definitely open our window up here. Somebody that just bought a property right now, maybe they're not necessarily the best candidate. Maybe they are, they're probably worth talking to. But for that approach of like looking for somebody who has bought property similar to yours, I would expand that window a little bit. Now, for the other side of this, the sellers, these recent sellers, maybe some of these people are in 1031 exchanges and maybe they need an upleg. Maybe they're actually feeling desperate because they're about to be out of their windows for the 1031. So that's another, a potential way to use this information to prospect. You got a listing, that seller's list, all those people are worth a phone call to see if they are, in dire need. Because if they are, those people are going to be very, very motivated to pick up the property. If they're on the hook for a huge tax bill, if they fall outside of those windows, you have to identify your upleg within 90 days of close of the downleg of the property they just sold. So these people are, under the gun to get something done. That's definitely a good look, good approach. So really quickly, so we had edited our list of sale comps down a little bit. If we go back to our analytics tab now, these numbers will update based on how we've edited our search. So as we're going through this list of properties, we settle on the list of ones that are actually sales comps for the property that we want to use to get to the valuation we've arrived at. You can come back to analytics and these will update for you. So cap rate stayed about the same. I think with that went up a little bit. Our price per square foot actually went up significantly. I think we were at 225 and now it's 285. Silver's asking, wants to sell about the same. Average square footage came down considerably because we took out those 30,000 and 25,000. The point here being, refine your results. Get down to the list of properties that are actually the comps, and you can come back to the analytics tab here, and this will do the math for you.
And the great thing too is a lot of real estate agents spend a lot of time figuring out sales comps, data analysis. All this stuff can be done super quickly within CoStar. So you can do what you do best, which is try to get more listings, get more sales. So this way, let us do the work for you.
Okay, so we have looked at active listings. We have run through a sales comping exercise. Now let's go prospecting. Let's go find ourselves some new clients. And we'll stick to the strip centers because like we said earlier, like we have multiple opportunities for a commission there.
Well, part of prospecting, you could do it through that buyer's tab as well, right?
Well, yeah,
They purchased already.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
They might be, if they're not in the market now, they might be in a year or so.
Correct.
Definitely.
So for prospecting, you go to sub-market?
So what we did was we clicked on all properties. So we're looking at all the properties in the area. And what David did in this particular case, we did East San Gabriel Valley, West San Gabriel Valley, and also Pasadena. So, and then he put in retail shopping centers. So we're just doing retail shopping centers in that area. So we're looking at all the owners and all the properties right now in that
But how
area,
do you start the search?
in all properties.
To all properties, yeah. I tend to operate mostly out of the all properties tab in CoStar. Just as like a blanket statement. Unless I'm specifically looking for sale or lease comps, I'm probably in all properties. All right, so looking just in San Gabriel Valley now, we've got 627 retail strip centers. Now we want to look for listing opportunities, or the same set of steps I'm going through would be to look for an off-market opportunity for a buyer. In either scenario, we want to take out the properties that are currently listed for sale. If we're looking for listing opportunities for ourselves, if it's already been listed with somebody else, we're too late. They've already got their situation going with another broker. If we're working with a buyer who wants to do something off market, then we've already shown them all of the listings and they've passed on those presumably. So we need to show them something else. Either way, we want to take out the active listings. So I need to be in my list view right here in order to do this, but I'm going to change my listing type to for sale. And I just want to remove all of these entries here. So if I choose one right here with this check mark, it'll give me this new menu here. Now I can select all of them and just remove them. Now I'm going to change this back to blank here. Let this load. Now we have a list of retail strip centers in the San Gabriel Valley that are not currently listed for sale. Let's take a look at a few of these.
And I think someone had a question about the contact information. So we're going to show you the level of contact information that we can get within CoStar.
So recorded owner versus true owner. As I'm sure you guys have encountered, lots, if not most, of commercial property trades hands under some sort of shell entity. 555 Main Street LLC, Ballou Family Trust. One of these, it's not a person's name that's the name on title. So one of the things that our research department does is we dig into the registration documents for those shell entities to figure out who the actual individual is and provide contact information for them. So in this case, the name on title for this property is just Sieber. No first name, nothing, just Sieber. Well, we've determined that that's actually Pacific Plaza Shopping Center, and George Sieber is the individual there, and that's his phone number. Now we'll also include any of the other contacts that we have associated with these properties. In this case, this building does have a lease availability, so the leasing company is included. Looks like the property manager is also included. Now, in this case, that's, it seems like these are all the same people, but anybody associated in any of those roles is going to be included on this contacts tab. Let's get another one here. So Shoe City is our owner here. These guys are actually clients of mine.
And you'll notice that the Shoe City one, not only did it have the phone number, it also had the email address. So you can email them in CoStar directly or copy and paste their email into your database and then email them that way too.
So I'm going to go back to my list view now. Next thing I want to do with this is, again, save the search. If this is the list of properties that we've identified that we want to work on, this is our farm, for lack of a better term. Let's save the search. We don't need to run through that set of steps that I went through to remove the for sale properties out. So we can just come back and reference that list every single time. Next, we've got some reports that are pretty useful here. I like to think of this as kind of two different approaches. We can go fishing or we can go hunting. Fishing, we're going to put something out in the world and see who comes back to us. So a mailer campaign. In that case, company contact labels. These are mailing labels for all of the true owners for this list of properties. Now, important to know, true owner is the important phrase there. If we do not have the true owner information, they do not make it to this list. That is in order to save money on bounce postage. We don't want you sending out a bunch of envelopes or flyers to address information that we haven't verified. So that's the fishing approach. If we'd like to go hunting, then the company contact report is probably what I'd go for. This is basically a smile and dial list. This is a name, contact information, and title of anybody associated with the ownership or management of these properties. This will include leasing brokers, recorded owner, true owner, property manager, anybody associated on that contacts page. You also have the option to export all this information to Excel. I really like our Excel export feature because this lets us customize our spreadsheet exactly how we want it before we open up the file. Everything on the right side here are the default fields that are included, but everything on the left could be brought over. So let's look at the contact fields, for instance.
So it's on Excel that it doesn't have the PDF.
Well, so those reports that I was talking about, those would be PDFs. This is for Excel though. Yes,
What kind of property that you have the two owners contact?
all properties.
Residential land?
We don't, this is all commercial property. We don't have any residential property. Land would be included though.
Land will be included as
Yeah.
well as commercial.
Yeah, so technically, commercial properties for multifamily is gonna be 5 and up. However, there are scenarios where, if it's like a duplex, sometimes we do have the owner information. So yeah.
Yeah, like the duplex, triplex, fourplex, if somebody wants to list that inside of CoStar, then that will end up in our database, but we don't actively track those smaller properties the way we do the 5 units and up. Chris. Sorry, I accidentally moved all of the fields over. Let's get all this true owner info right here. And let's put that up at the top of the sheet. Maybe like right under the property address. And maybe I don't really care what the property name is.
So what he's doing right now is just editing the Excel documents to make it easier for you when you export this Excel document to be able to see it.
And again, we have all these different subcategories of these different fields here. So like we're looking at retail property. Let's look at the retail fields. Any of these fields here could be included in your sheet.
And the really good thing about CoStar, like all this is super intuitive. It's like really easy, you just point and click, everything. Like I've sold CoStar to a lot of brokers and real estate agents. And basically a lot of times we'll do the training and they'll tell me, it's like, hey, this is a lot easier than I thought. It's very intuitive. It's very user friendly. So we try to make it as simple as possible.
All right. You want to do the?
Yeah, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here. So another kind of thing, low hanging fruit, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the changes tab. And the reason why I'm clicking on the changes tab is I'm trying to look for any properties that were once put up for listing and then kind of like for some reason withdrawn. So when it says withdrawn right here, oops, sorry. So I'm going to click on it again. So when it says withdrawn, at one point it was put up for a listing and then something happened and it changed and it's no longer an active listing. So that's what some brokers do in order to like look for types of listings, kind of like expired listings. So that's one tip within CoStar.
Question on that withdrawal.
Yes.
If it says withdrawal, question will be more, can we contact them, the owners, or? Because on listing, we cannot do that.
So
If you have to say it's
Well,
cancel,
remember, this is, you can't because it's MLS.
correct.
This is not MLS.
yeah, so major difference between CoStar and MLS. We do not exert anywhere near the level of
Control.
micromanaging control that the MLS does of your listings. Like we don't look into whether you have a signed listing agreement, if it's put on hold status, so there's no you have to adjust the status in 3 days. Because we operate nationwide and now internationally, there's just too many different rules, even between association to association, let alone across state lines, to have that kind of level of micromanagement for the listings. So I mean, I don't know what your guys' office policy is, but those withdrawn listings, you can contact.
Right?
Say again.
It's open game.
Well, I mean, you're going to call and find out. Like the owner may say, "Oh no, I'm already working with this other broker." But basically, there's not like the same thing in MLS where signed listing agreement is this number is input in the system is good for 120 days. That's not how this works.
So you're not policing the solicitation of them trying to get a listing that's been withdrawn.
Correct.
And then one other thing too is when you're doing these withdrawn listings, you would just basically go into like a particular listing and you would just go into the public records data. So I want to actually do one of these listings and you just want to make sure that it hasn't been sold there wasn't a sold recent transaction. So you just go into public records and just double check. So this one's a recent sold one, even though it was withdrawn. So you just want to double check that it wasn't for sale. So if you look for changes withdrawn and it wasn't a recent sale, then you know for sure then that's going to be a good candidate for you to call.
Oh, because it could have sold after the withdrawal date.
Correct. Yeah. Another thing that I kind of wanted to go over is a full underwriting report, because so knowledge is power. So some of the top brokers that I work with, what they'll do is before they go to their listing presentation, like if they did all this prospecting stuff that David has been talking about, then they were able to set an appointment and secure the listing presentation. What they're going to do is they're going to print something called a full underwriting report. And basically what that report is able to do is it's going to tell you everything that you would need to know about that particular property, what's happening in the markets, demographic information, traffic counts, basically everything that you would need to know about that subject property. So David, see, for example, you would just go into this Main Street. So you'll go into that particular listing first. And then on the top, there's going to be like a reports button. And then so you're going to click on that reports button. And then here it's going to say full underwriting report. And then you're going to click on full underwriting report and then hit next and generate. And so generally this takes about like a couple of minutes to process. So I'll kind of show you one that was already done before. And then how do I get to the desktop view for this? Perfect.
Then just go to folder.
Folder.
The one next to the edge icon on the bottom left.
Okay, edge.
On the left.
Left. Okay.
Next one.
This one. All right, perfect. All right, cool.
And then desktop.
So we're gonna go to desktop. And I'm just gonna
PDF.
show you an
PDF,
example.
Third from the bottom.
Third from the bottom, bam. So this is an example of one that we kind of did earlier. And then is there a way to?
Yeah, you see
take
that
this-
arrow? No, go
this-
down.
No.
On the left. Here.
There we go. So this is an example of a full underwriting report. So it's going to have information about that particular property. It's also going to have your name, George Realty, Coldwell Banker. Then it's going to have the subject shopping center. So it's going to have the center details, the market summary of what's happening in Los Angeles, peer shopping centers, leasing analytics, what new construction is happening, sales comps, demographic information. So it's going to have all this for your listing presentation, so you know exactly what's happening with the property around the market. So then that would definitely help you with that listing presentation. So you'll have all the knowledge necessary for it.
So this is a CMA in the residential.
Sort of. I mean,
Kind
you
of,
can
yeah.
definitely use it that way. There's a lot of different uses for this underwriting report. Developers love these, lenders love these, retail operators love these. Generally speaking, a commercial real estate transaction is fairly numbers driven. It's not like, oh, I love the kitchen, I'm going to buy the house kind of thing. So this information is going to be used to motivate or justify. So motivate, a buyer to develop some interest in a property to actually put in an offer, or justify, a sale price, in a listing appointment you have with somebody.
In other words, commercial, you guys don't have a heart.
Well, okay, I will say there is,
Yes, money talks. I mean, numbers.
there is this sort of like stigma or stereotype about that in commercial. The commercial real estate world is much smaller than the residential world. There are fewer properties, fewer buyers, fewer sellers, all of these kinds of things. I think it is actually much more relationship driven than the residential world. Most people in residential, there's not a lot of like double ending in residential. The assumption is you're going to get a listing, somebody else is going to bring the buyer. Most commercial brokers are trying to do both sides. And so they have to be kind of, talking to everybody potentially. And so those relationships are more impactful in commercial, in my opinion, than in residential.
No, you're right, because I've helped for commercial listings, and they hardly ever do your phone calls.
Well, that's to your question earlier about, calling the people with withdrawn listings. If you own a commercial property in Southern California, you are getting lots of phone calls every day. I know I used to make those phone calls. Like I would start at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go until 9 o'clock at night sometimes, and just down the line calling every single person. And of course, some people are just going to hang up on you. Some people are going to yell at you. Most of them want to talk to you though, sort of depending on what your pitch is on the phone, they definitely want to hear about what their property's worth. Oh, a building down the street just sold for X amount of dollars. That's good information for them. They're definitely interested in that. So I wouldn't get too, caught up on, I'm bothering somebody or anything like that. Like that's the name of the game. They bought the property. They're getting calls from a whole bunch of different brokers. Why not you?
And there's a lot of stuff that you can find in CoStar and find talking points and data, because your job is just to basically educate those owners. And if you're able to educate those owners and help them out, they're going to listen to you and want to talk to you.
Or it's just timing and positioning yourself, because if, the owner that just sold didn't like the way the transaction went, or is fallout with the agent or whatever, you're the person that called.
Actually, I was talking about the listing brokers. I have buyers that want to buy some warehouses, and I will call the listing agent, and they hardly I mean, they will hardly ever review the plan.
Yeah, because they want a double end.
Yeah.
Want a double end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why, you're right.
They'll call you last resort.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just kind of how it goes. This is why, buyers are liars. That's like the famous phrase. If you are trying to operate commercial real estate working exclusively with buyers, I mean, good luck to you. That is a hard way to go. That is challenge for sure. Let's get you some listings, would be my advice.
Because listings get you buyers, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because I mean, the exact same dynamic. Now, instead of you calling them, and not returning your phone call, now they get to call you and you cannot return their phone call.
How did you get into this the underwriting PDF?
So good question. So basically, if you have a CoStar subscription, what you're going to do is you're going to go to a subject property. So you'll pick a property. So for example, this one is 1300 East Main Street. You're going to click on reports. And then you're going to click on the full underwriting. Well, it's not showing up for some reason, but it works 20 seconds or 2 minutes ago. You would just click on that. It'll say full underwriting report.
And usually takes about 5 minutes.
It generally takes about, if I'm not on Zoom, I would say about 2 minutes to 5 minutes, depending on the size of the report.
It's like an 80 to 120 page report. It's pulling in a lot of different modules. So that is one of the longer turnaround times on the reports. Now, we went through all those different sections that are included in the full underwriting report. Emphasis on the word full. You can also run just the individual sections as well. Each one of those is listed out in that list of available reports. So let's say you just want the sales comp or just the lease comp information, but you want to present it in that format of the underwriting report, you can't isolate just that one part as well. And those reports those are PDFs intended for you to be sending out to clients.
Now, I have a relatively superficial question, but
Sure.
in terms of that report, can we change the branding from CoStar's logo? to
Oh,
our
yeah.
logo?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that one on the bottom of the page that you pointed out, that said, my name and said CoStar and had the CoStar logo. That's because we're operating out of my CoStar. If you were in your CoStar, that would be your name, your company logo on the bottom. Now, there might still be a CoStar logo somewhere throughout the
That's what I'm
thing.
talking about.
That is our
Like,
data.
throughout the whole thing. Can we replace?
No.
No.
I mean, it's our data, But your name and branding will be on the page as well.
One more thing that I kind of wanted to go over, because I had a couple real estate agents from Coldwell Banker let me know, basically they had retail listings. They wanted to look up traffic counts and demographic information. So you can definitely do that within CoStar. So what you're going to do is you're going to just click on the layer field right over here. And then you're going to click on traffic counts. So you're going to say traffic count right here. So then you hit the done button and then you basically zoom in.
Go back to the layers again.
Okay, cool.
Uncheck the search results at the top.
Uncheck the search result. You may hit declare.
No map layers. Up. Under filters.
Oh, search results. Okay, cool. So basically you click on layers and then you click on shopping count right over here, traffic counts. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And pick a subject property.
You don't want to check the search results then.
You know what? Let me start from scratch. I'm going to do Pasadena, California. And then I'm just going to click on layers. And then traffic count, okay. And then zoom in. Pick up a particular street.
There you go.
So there we go. So then basically you can see the traffic counts. You can also click on layers to find out the demographic information too. So I'm going to click on here. And then let's say, for example, you wanted to know like percent college graduates, you can click on it too. So it'll tell you the percent college graduates. You can also click on medium household income. So I know some of the brokers use that information as well. And then they also click on reports. And then you can, on the bottom, it's going to have the demographic information and traffic count. So scroll down, just show you, boom, right over here. Because I know Michelle Olson had that question and was helping her last week with it.
Those make for really good presentation tools. The demographic maps, and especially city government offices really like those anytime they're doing any sort of like public presentation. So and the same for a client meeting, or if kind of an event like this, you're when you present to a group of people, those demographic layers are very useful. The traffic counts are also included in any individual property record. So you're looking at like a specific property or on the summary tab in CoStar, all of the traffic counts for the nearby intersections are included in every record in the database.
So that's it for us. Is there anything else that we can help you with? Yeah.
There you go. I know those guys are very wise because they work in commercial.
Yeah.
I haven't done it a few times.
Okay.
I'm more into the single homes,
Yeah.
apartment buildings, for instance.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Same thing over here. You guys work. I guess you have a good information in building apartments and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So yeah. So multifamily is going to be part of the CoStar subscription. So we'll track all that data for you too. One thing to let you know is CoStar did buy HomeSnap and also Homes.com. So I don't know when, but maybe in the future that residential data is going to be put into CoStar. So they are working on that too.
Okay.
But yes, we have lots of multifamily data. And that's like a pretty normal bridge for residential agents who want to get into commercial. That's usually like the first, step that they take for, unless you just like launch full on into commercial. Any apartment building that's under 4 units, that's still a residential loan. In some cases, it's a lot of same forms. Some other types of commercial assets, they don't like the CAR forms. Like industrial properties, the AIR forms are industry standard here in Southern California. Apartment buildings, nobody's going to bat an eye at using a CAR form.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Any
I
other?
got another question.
There we go. Who's that?
This is Oscar Seguero. By the CoStar, what's happening with the 10X? You know anything about it? Anybody auction?
Sorry, what was the question?
Repeat one more time.
About the auction 10X.
Oh,
My son worked for CoStar too.
Yes. So 10X is our auction platform. That's been a newer brand that we have been developing. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an auction platform for properties. We've also been doing the Battle of the Bids. So for any of our CoStar subscribers, you can enter into basically like an underwriting contest for any of the properties that are listed for auction. You can view the due diligence material and submit what you think the winning bid will be. And if that property sells for a certain amount within that, basically kind of like Price is Right, whoever gets the closest price, you get points, and whoever gets the most points, there are cash prizes involved. I'm not exactly sure when the next round of that starts, but I had some fun doing that earlier this year. I was a little butthurt. There was a piece of land in Chicago that I thought I had nailed on the valuation price, but turns out there was something pretty funky on the due diligence that they did let us, the CoStar subscribers, see, and so I ended up being way off on the valuation there. But yeah, so the 10X is an auction platform. That's kind of the the owner has to be like on board for that basically, or do they actually want to put the property up for auction as opposed to a traditional, brokerage platform? Now, we do require that they work with a broker when the property is put on the auction platform. So this isn't like we're not trying to replace real estate agents. You're still involved. You're still going to make a commission. Like that's all. We guarantee that, and we will not let them, do that if they're going to try to cut you out. And it is a pretty powerful marketing blitz. Part of what's included in that auction platform is a diamond ad, which is the top tier of advertising. Go to the homepage here.
I'm having trouble. How do I get to the homepage from here?
Just the CoStar logo at the top.
CoStar. Okay, oh, got it. Yeah.
Everybody see that in your can you do it? Because I have people call me and tell me about the X auction.
Yeah.
I'm like, where do you get information from?
Which
one? They get it from LoopNet too?
Well, so they're listed on LoopNet. Now, included with that, if you enter into the 10X program, basically we're going to work with you to develop that marketing package, because this is going to be very prominently placed across all of our websites. Like if you're on the CoStar homepage, for instance, the ads that are on the right side, those are almost always 10X ads. And so we're going to help you generate a due diligence package that will be included. Usually there's an NDA associated with that. Like somebody has to provide their contact information in order to get that due diligence material in order to submit a bid. Trying to think what else. That's that's a different sales team that handles 10X. If there are specific questions about 10X, shoot me an email, or we can talk more about it later. Battle of the Bids. That's a promotion associated with 10X.
So it's just kind of like the fantasy football of commercial real estate auction sites. So it's just a way for you to, if you wanted to kind of like if you wanted to kind of like do a gamification strategy and just basically learn about 10X a little bit more, then you could kind of like what David said, is bid on different properties, figure out what they're going to be selling at. And then that way you could maybe win some money.
Well, I mean, 10X is owned by CoStar. It's been the Battle of Bids has been advertised on CoStar, but it's a different website. And I'm not sure if the Battle of Bids was open just to CoStar subscribers, if that was to the public or not. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, because sometimes when I'm with a client and I'm doing a training with them and they have CoStar, there'll be like a pop-up for Battle of the Bids, and that's where you would see it. Like they had continuous pop-ups for Battle of the Bids.
Maybe it is just CoStar subscribers.
Yeah, I believe it's just CoStar subscribers, from what I remember. All right, cool. So if you have any questions, if you're a current CoStar subscriber and you want additional training, because we probably went over like 15 things that are very important, we can do additional training one-on-one with you. And if you want to know more about CoStar and kind of like see how it can help you with your commercial real estate business, contact one of us and we'll be happy to help you out.
Well, actually, we would like to talk to you guys about how to get how to search for clients like the part where you look for properties not in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How to
definitely.
search for that. Yeah, so definitely I would like to get some.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so David will schedule a meeting with you so he can meet in person or do a Zoom with you and kind of go over that with you.
Yep.
Since you're a CoStar subscriber.
All right.
All right, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's stop recording on that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just on those three little buttons.